Good morning, everyone. And it's a pleasure to speak to you today, even though I couldn't be there live. Very keen on talking about the ACT Accelerator today and why it hasn't really delivered the equity that is needed. So first of all, a little introduction of who I am. I am the CSO representative on the ACT Accelerator Facilitation Council and the Principles Group, as well as the Diagnostics Pillar. And I'll give you an overview of the ACT Accelerator structure so you'll be able to see what those groups are and how they work. Basically, the ACT Accelerator is a multilateral program or platform that is designed to deliver technologies to the global south. However, there's much been said about kind of inequity, that it's been unable to deliver equitably to people in the global south. And while the ACT Accelerator may be foreign to some of you, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the COVAX, which is supposed to be the platform to deliver vaccines to the global south. And the COVAX is under the ACT Accelerator. So I'm going to show you a slide now that shows the structure of the ACT Accelerator. And as you can see from the slide, it has a diagnostics pillar, it has a vaccines pillar, it has a therapeutics pillar, as well as a health systems connector. Now, as you can see, there is also a facilitation council. Now, the facilitation council is where all the WHO member states sit. And this is where, my job will be to call out countries that aren't doing so well, or to congratulate countries who are, and to point out issues within those countries. So one of the things, for example, that we called out is that the Indian representative, which is usually the Minister of Health, said that India is completely self-sufficient on diagnostics. So this is one thing that we called out and said, this is incorrect. Many Indians don't have access to rapid tests at home. So this is a real problem. So that's one of my jobs at the Facilitation Council. You also see on the right of the screen something called the Principles Group. Now, the Principles Group is a call that happens every Thursday, and it consists of the heads of all the global health agencies, such as Dr. Tedros, Peter Sands, all the other heads of the global health agencies. And this is where key decisions are made, or any key issues that come up are discussed. Major issues coming up are also discussed there, such as, emergence of new variants or oxygen shortages, and things like that. So that's where I sit. And a key issue that has emerged over the course of the year that we've been on the ACT Accelerator, a year plus, is that there's very little low and middle income country involvement. And when that happens, and when it's global north-led, white male-led mainly, is that you get a distortion of priorities. And this is clear from a number of examples. For example, doses of vaccines that were sent to the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan were returned to the COVAX because, the tools that they had used, the ACT Accelerator used to estimate vaccine readiness, were not sufficiently accurate, and the countries were not able to deploy. And in addition, there's very little lead time that is given to countries before the vaccines arrive in country. So it could be that on Monday, Gavi, who is the lead of the COVAX, Gavi tells the country, okay, your vaccines are coming in 5 days. So for many countries that don't have very many resources or planning capacity, 5 days is really insufficient. And we had this example, for example, from Somalia, that had 5 days of lead time. And while they've successfully deployed 90% of the vaccines that came to them, the fact that there's no transparency on vaccine deployment schedules is a real problem. And this is something that we've addressed, we've brought up at the Principles calls and at the Facilitation Council, basically saying, look, you have to make the schedules transparent. Countries need to know when they're likely to get their vaccines, and it's really problematic that this isn't the case. Unfortunately, Gavi, and through Seth Berkley, who is the head of Gavi, said that they can't make the schedules transparent because there are a lot of moving parts. Now, this is really problematic, of course, and one of the things that you as civil society need to do is to demand transparency, to demand that countries need some kind of security and need to know when their doses are coming in. But already you can see so many problems arising from the multilateral system, because like in the case of the DRC and South Sudan returning the vaccines back to the COVAX, this really shouldn't happen. If there were experts from LMICs in the working groups or in the ACT Accelerator, this really wouldn't have happened, because the experts could have said, 5 days lead time is insufficient, or we need investment into our community health workers first to deploy the vaccines out to rural areas. So there are a number of issues that are problematic with that. The next slide I'd like to show you is a slide on absorptive capacity. So on this slide, it's a slide from a meeting that happened at the ACT Accelerator not more than a month ago. And basically what you can see there is the new consideration for the next deployments of vaccines. So absorptive capacity will be considered in the next deployments. What does that mean? A country will be judged on the ability of it to absorb or consume the vaccines. This has raised several concerns from people on the principles groups, because if a country is judged to have less absorptive capacity, they get less doses delivered to them. And this is really, really problematic, just because what should be done is allocation per need. So, obviously the countries need more than 20% of their populations vaccinated, but the ACT Accelerator it promised to provide vaccines for only 20% of the populations of low and middle income countries, which in itself is inequitable. Who decided this 20% figure, right? When countries in the global north are already deciding on booster shots, and countries in the global south are still, struggling to reach even 20%. But anyways, this absorptive capacity is going to make the inequity worse. What should be done is, when they find out a country is not going to be able to deploy enough vaccines for, say, 20% of its population, it shouldn't give them less vaccines, but rather it should provide simultaneous, concurrent investments into things that would increase that ability to deploy. For example, cold chain support, for example, information technology systems that allow people to register, or to allow community health workers to go out into the community and register people, and also to salary community health workers who could do that. So absorptive capacity is a real problem, and it's a real part of the next deployments of vaccines that are coming through COVAX. So it's quite clear, and I'm seeing that I have 1 minute of recording left. It's quite clear that this is quite an inequitable system, and the voluntary systems are just not working. So what's needed really is some kind of compulsory way to get technology to manufacture these vaccines into the global south, and of course for global south entities to start challenging these global health agencies on how they've been conducting themselves during the deployment of these vaccines and during the procurement of these vaccines. And on a final point is the fact that the United Kingdom, for example, is not dose sharing. It's bought, more than 4 doses per person, and it is ready to also give booster shots in the near future. And yet it is also consuming doses from the COVAX. And Seth Berkley of Gavi has said it will honor these agreements. So, you know, it's crazy that the UK is consuming doses from the COVAX as well. So loads of problems, and my apologies that I can't address any of your questions further, but I hope the slides helped in helping you understand. And of course, feel free to email me with any of your questions further. Thanks very much.